Arrested Facebook poster speaks out. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. So Zoe Lee Burler has spoken to the media about her arrest. Let's have a look at this article from news.com and see what she has to say. So, pregnant Victorian woman who filmed her arrest, which has gotten millions of views now and has really shocked a whole lot of people. I've done a video about it looking at some of the Twitter responses and some of the media that's jumped on board. It's got fame, and it's framing some of the opinions some people have of Australia. I'll link to that video up above. In some ways, I suspect Australia has lost its innocence. A pregnant anti-lockdown protester who live-streamed her arrest on social media has broken her silence about the clip that seems to have divided the internet. Zoe Lee Buller, 28, was yesterday charged with inciting a protest against the pandemic restrictions in Ballarat CBD. The video on her Facebook page has already been viewed more than 1.4 million times in the space of 4 hours by Wednesday night, climbing to 4.6 million views earlier this morning. So there you go. Too bad she didn't get a buck for every view, huh? Miss Buller has since been banned from posting on Facebook as one of her bail conditions, but has been doing the rounds on media this morning. Speaking to reporters outside her home this morning, she claimed she didn't realize that the protests weren't allowed. I was aware that the protests coming up in Melbourne weren't permitted, but we're in stage 3 lockdown, she said. I had a bit of a bimbo moment. And when I mentioned that to Rachel, she immediately went to baby brain. Is this evidence that baby brain is right? It's something she advocates all the time, or perhaps just uses it to get out of doing harder work, harder project work. But no, perhaps. Despite the footage of her arrest being slammed on social media, she said all the police involved were actually quite nice, which wasn't on camera. They took the handcuffs off and let me get dressed, and they were nice down at the police station. They just have to do their job at the moment, and they say they weren't really happy about having to arrest me or anything, but that's what's happening at the moment in our state. Now, that's a big problem. Because honestly, I think morale for the police would be in the gutter. But some of them will just go along with the flow. They'll go along with the flow. They'll do as they're told. It's the law. Sorry I have to march you away. Sorry I have to take your freedoms. Sorry I have to arrest you. It's the law. That's the danger, everyone. People are quite complacent. They don't, if you warn about restrictions on people's freedoms, if 6 months or a year ago you had have said there was the risk of Australians being locked in their home with a curfew, only allowed to go outside of their property 1 hour a day, not able to go more than 5 kilometres from their house, you would have been called a complete and utter nutter. No one would have taken you seriously. I think it's just complacency. We've had it so good in Australia. We've had it so cosy. We've drifted more and more to let the government take care of that. It's the government's responsibility. And that's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing. Because when people can use the power of the state to take away from one to give to you, well, what if you're no longer the one in favour? I wonder if this is her first ever actual attempt to make a political movement, or to any political activism on her part. She said she decided to plan a protest in Ballarat to stand up for human rights. I did kind of want to protest in Melbourne, but I obviously knew I wasn't allowed to do that. I just wanted to feel like I was doing something, she said. See, this is the thing. A lot of people are getting frustrated. They're getting locked down. They're getting restricted. Their freedoms are completely curtailed in Victoria. It is incredibly harsh. And there are counter-arguments to even doing that. I've done videos on this. This is the thing. I'll get idiots in the comments. I'm not just pulling this stuff out of my ass, guys. I'm basing my arguments and positions on evidence. It's this crazy thing, because there's always two sides to the story. Here, have a look at this lecture, or this paper, Disease Mitigation by D.A. Henderson. We go through it. I know it's an hour long. But we go through the entire paper that he and others prepared. Critical of a lot of the measures that we are implementing around the world because of the unintended consequences of it. This isn't just, a bald dude on the internet yelling at clouds. This is eminent research from people who helped eradicate smallpox, critical of these draconian measures that are in place that were suggested in the past and were dismissed as outmoded and ineffective. But I suspect our leaders aren't brave enough to counter the prevailing narrative or to challenge the experts or the professionals. What do you think they're talking about at the conferences they're all these health professionals go to? It'll just be the same thing again and again. It's easy just to go with the flow. If you're wrong, everyone's wrong. Whereas to go against it and you're wrong, you're really wrong. That's how it is. If we just go with the flow and, oh, well, Australia implemented all these restrictions, but so was everyone else. Oh, well. That's less of a risk politically. Because there's some people that would be eating this up, that would be fanatically supporting these strict interventions and restrictions into people's lives. And we'll have a look at some of the comments in this article. I'm a passionate person and I'm sick of the lockdown. Good on her. I'm sick of hearing about suicides, and she lost her job. She said she wishes she could encourage protesting, but didn't want to see people get hurt. I'm just emotional, I'm baffled, she said. When people asked if she still would go to a protest, she said she was done with her activism. And that's, we'll jump to this clip. Here, let's hear it in her words.
Would you still go and protest if you could?
No, I'm too scared now. And it's fear-mongering. That's how I feel.
She's too scared. It's fear-mongering. I mean, that's the thing. It's a suburban housewife. A suburban housewife from Ballarat, with kids. She's getting so frustrated to the point that she wanted to do something. She's angry. And I would say a lot of people are in a similar situation. They're frustrated and they're angry. The thing is, how effective is a protest going to be now? What difference is it going to make? Do you think it's actually going to sway your leaders? I honestly think the most effective message you can signal is at the ballot box in Queensland. It's a shame NT didn't get a big swing. If Queensland gets a swing, is the LNP here in Queensland, are they coming out strongly against these restrictions, publicly condemning what Victoria is doing, going, if we get in, we will never do that in Queensland, if they're making a statement. I mean, that's why we had Christian try and pull the Renew Party up. And the problem was, trying to hurt people, he almost got there with the numbers. I think he got halfway with the little time he had, which is quite impressive. That's how I think, if you can get a big, significant chunk of people to vote against the prevailing parties, vote against Labor, send a clear message. If you had a miner going up, a miner that was active, that was loudly and boldly declaring a more personal liberty and personal responsibility approach to mitigating with this, that would send a very clear message. They'd pay attention to that. Because they'll just dismiss the protests. They'll just dismiss it as people letting off some steam. Because how many people would protest and then go right back to voting for Labor in Victoria? How many people will just keep Dan getting back in? There's a question for you. So, she admitted she thought she was being kidnapped by the plainclothes detectives. I was scared that I was just being kidnapped by people. They obviously were in uniform. Yes, I've been charged with incitement and, which, like I said, I'm still yet to know exactly what that means. Furious social media commentators early described the footage of her arrest as absolutely disgusting and not okay. What the actual F1 person wrote, echoing many others, while another described it as a national day of shame. The news has made international headlines, with American publications including USA Today, The Washington Examiner, Newsweek, and the UK's The Sun among those picking up the story, while social media users from across the globe have been also slammed the handling of the case. Australian commentators have also weighed in, with former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman describing Victorian police as the shame of the nation, while activist social media account Mad Effing Something questioned the police response. How can we live in a country where a young pregnant woman gets arrested from allegedly inciting anti-lockdown against angst? But what the hell? Why are you talking about these people? She's trying to organize an event. Alan Jones, Sam Newman, they're not. They're talking about, they're criticizing it. There's a difference. And they're in different states. Sam Newman was only, there's a power imbalance too. You can't arrest a celebrity, can you? Detectives descended on her Mines Rest home yesterday, armed with a search warrant after they became aware of a prohibited gathering scheduled to take place in the regional Victorian city this Saturday. Officers raided the 28-year-old's home and seized her mobile phone and computer equipment after she greeted them at the door in pink pajamas. Upon being told she was going to be arrested, she began to cry and told officers she'd be happy to delete her social media posts, with her Facebook page reportedly containing links to a peaceful Freedom Day protest scheduled for the weekend. And we had a look at the description for that. I mean, it was nothing excessive. It was quite reasonable. It was quite a vanilla post for Facebook. I get compared to some of the stuff you see out there, it was quite vanilla, you know. But it just shows people don't realize the power that's handed over to the state. You know, they don't realize the threat that can pose to your individual liberty. The government has gone to extreme measures and are using scare tactics through the media to prevent the Melbourne protest, the event's description said. Okay, we've already gone through that in another video. She told the police she had not broken any laws by posting about the protest on Facebook, to which the offenders responded she has. Well, she organised it. You know? This is unequivocally not okay, Sydney Watson wrote on Twitter. So, and there we go. Reader, Herald Sun columnist, is also critical of it. Victorian police have since issued a stern warning to anyone still considering attending the event, saying protesters can expect a swift and firm response from police. Now, the thing is, it comes down to numbers, guys. I don't know how effective it would be. I mean, do you think Andrews is going to care? Do you think Dan Andrews is going to care in the slightest? He only needs 51% of the vote, everyone. You need to swing at the ballot box to get him out. We'll have no hesitation in issuing $1,652 fines to anyone who is breaching the restrictions on the day or making arrests if necessary. See, this is the thing. Other groups and organizations, they have funding from other parties that will pay for those fines. In America, when they get arrested, the Antifa members, they'll go onto forums and they'll get money thrown at them to pay for all the expenses. That's how it is. The arrest comes just days after a group of anti-lockdown protesters in Melbourne's north clashed with police, and AFL great Sam Newman called on 250,000 residents to take back the city. After Victorian police threatened to arrest him, the 74-year-old abruptly backed down, telling Sunrise yesterday morning that his calls to arms was simply hyperbole. I said, wouldn't it be great if 250,000 Australians wandered through the city? I don't encourage people to do that, but it's just a sign that this government should cautiously reopen business enterprise in the city before it rusts over, Newman told the program. Well, I mean, similar things happen in Europe. Look at what was happening in Germany. Can't see it happening here in Australia. I can't see it happening here in Australia. The former footy show host tweeted this afternoon he'd also been paid a visit by police who advised him against protesting. Now, this is the thing. He said it would be great if it would happen. He didn't actually set up an event for people to go to and plan it. That's the difference. You'd hope that was the difference. So let's look at some of these comments here. Jason. If Victorians had not breached rules from the beginning, then the government wouldn't have to come down so hard on people now. So there you go. But in saying that, as an ex-cop, there are rules on when you are allowed to handcuff people, as it is a show of force. These include for your safety or for the safety of other persons. She clearly wasn't a risk. The nature of the offence was not arrested for a violent offence. If anything, she was put at risk, I'm assuming, by being put in handcuffs, and would have gone with police quietly if dealt with properly. Okay, so next copper isn't impressed with what they're doing. Jimbo, does it make a difference when someone breaks the law if they're pregnant or elderly or anything like that? Short answer, no. So Jeff South Oz. According to the letter of the law in Victoria, what she did meets the definition of incitement as an offence. Inciting a person to pursue a course of conduct that will, if acted upon, involve the commission of an offence by the person inciting and or the inciter is an indictable offence under the Crimes Act of 58. This is a form of inchoate liability, like attempting and conspiracy. Incitement is an indictable offence, regardless of whether or not the incited offence is indictable. Incitement is a substantive offence and is committed upon completion of the inciting conduct, regardless of whether the incitement is successful. Aha, oh boy. Boy. I'm given an understanding that police procedure in any arrest requires that the suspect be handcuffed as a safety precaution. Once again, the lack of constitutional protections in regard to freedom of speech allows the Australian government almost unlimited power. This is getting out of hand, and he's right there. He's right there. It all comes back to this. It all comes back to freedom of speech. All the time. All the people who are happy for the social justice warriors to regulate your speech. All the people who support any of these social justice campaigns where it's controlling speech, where it's compelling speech. The fact that we have a Human Rights Commission, the fact that we have anti-discrimination legislation, all of these things, bit by bit, build up. And this is just the first sign. Now, I hope this will encourage people to make a political statement and insist that we actually get freedom of speech in this country. That we actually get it. And they're saying lock up the activist. Because then how many? Well, what about that crazy feminist Ford when she's inciting things? Why aren't they done? Here we go. Don't break the law, you don't get arrested. See, this is the thing, guys. What does Australia and North Korea have in common? Well, lots really. Rob Gilmore. Give Andrews credit here. He's certified a quick learner. He has mastered all of the CCP's tricks. So let's have a look. What's Andrews' take on it? What's good old Dan said? So fear-mongering, Daniel Andrews claims not to have seen the viral arrest footage. So he hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen it, guys. Daniel Andrews claims, and this is from Sky, claims he has not seen viral footage of a pregnant woman being arrested over a Facebook post and dodged questions about why Black Lives Matter protesters were not targeted in the same manner. I wonder why. The Victorian Premier told media he hadn't seen the disturbing footage, which has had millions of views online, and lashed out at media asking for information. If Sky News is advocating that I should change my position and protests should be allowed, well, it's an interesting day then, isn't it? Because my position will not be changing, he said. With the greatest respect, I don't quite understand the point of the question. Is he on the spectrum? There are rules. We're not going to change those rules. Protests are not smart, they're not safe, and they're not lawful. And that's where it's at. Miss Zoe Lee Buller said she's now too scared to attend protests and described Daniel Andrews as fear-mongering. So, there we have it, everyone. There we have it. Zoe's spoken out. She's now too scared. Rightly so. Rightly so. What would happen? Remember, there was another protester. Did you see the footage of them taking the children away from them? Screaming, screeching in Sydney. You know, this is the thing. This is the thing. What do you think, everyone? What are your plans or strategies? Do you think there's a hope What if there's a massive swing against Labor here in Queensland in the next election? Do you think that will send a clear message? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links to Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see you all in the next episode.